what are the key lessons around management and team building that you think every attorney should hear?
I think really saying, okay, what do I need to delegate? How can I delegate it? And then putting the right people in the seat and not being afraid to replacing that seat if you need to, because the magic happens when you start getting those right people in the right seats. When you start getting the right people who align core values, who align with the identity of the organization that fit, and then getting them in the right seats. You got to have both.
If you're an aggressive, growth-minded attorney looking to transform your law firm into a thriving business, you're in the right place. Welcome to the AGM Attorney Podcast, the #1 podcast dedicated exclusively to aggressive, growth-minded attorneys. Each episode will deliver actionable strategies and insights to help you attract ideal clients, scale your law firm, and dominate your market. And now, here's your host, Josh Konigsberg.
Welcome to the AGM Attorney Podcast, where aggressive, growth-minded attorneys discover proven strategies to transform their law firms into thriving businesses. A special thank you to our sponsor, Law Firm Marketing Pros. They get you more leads, more clients, and more profits. I'm your host, Josh Konigsberg. Let's get aggressive. Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of the AGM Attorney Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Konigsberg, and today I'm super excited to have back for a second time my guest, Josh Adams. He is the former founder and CEO of Rock, Paper, Simple, and a lifelong entrepreneur. Josh now brings his leadership experience to a new chapter as a professional EOS implementer. With years of experience building systems, leading teams, and guiding growth, Josh helps law firm owners gain traction, clarity, and control using the entrepreneurial operating system. Josh, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again. Very excited to be here for a second time.
So you were a guest on episode 10 as the founder of Rock, Paper, Simple. Since then, you've taken on a new role as an EOS implementer. What drew you to EOS, and why did you feel as though it was the right next step for you?
For me, honestly, we ran on EOS at Rock, Paper, Simple for 5 years. We self-implemented, and then after about a year of that, and it not really clicking for us, we hired an implementer, and it was game changing. Honestly, it changed my life as a business owner and a founder. So much so that after about a couple of years, I was able to step back and I started doing fractional chief marketing officer work, specifically for EOS companies, which is actually how we met. We had a mutual client, right? I was the fractional CMO, and it's kind of fun. We ended up getting to work together. And I started seeing that what really got me going was the framework. It was EOS. Whether it be in my own company or it be within the fractional work I was doing for EOS companies, I watched it transform companies, and I watched it free founders. And I said, I want to do that. So I made the leap. I sold my agency not too long ago. And I've come full-time into EOS implementation.
I love the story. Congratulations on the sale of Rock, Paper, Simple, which I loved all the branding and really a wonderful chapter in your life.
That was 13 years. 13 years.
There you go. Wow. Okay. For the attorneys who've heard the acronym but don't really know what it is, what is EOS and how does it actually work in the context of a law firm?
Yeah, I think first of all, defining it, EOS just stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System, right? And really what it is, the simplest way to define it is it's a simple set of tools and disciplines to get more out of your organization, to get more out of your business, to get more out of your practice, right? And so what we're looking at is how do we create clarity of vision, develop traction so things are always happening in the business, continuing to move closer to that vision, and then you create healthy within the organization. How do you create a healthy team that's working together, loving working together, and those tools and disciplines help to cultivate that, right? There's a model wheel, right, that talks about the 6 key components of your business, and the whole framework is designed to get those healthier.
That's a great explanation of it. Thank you, because we've been doing it for about 5 years, self-implemented also, and it was a game changer when we got an implementer. So it really makes a difference. So many law firms are led by these incredible lawyers, right? And they yet struggle with the business side of business. And we know that they don't teach business in law school. They don't teach marketing in law school. You've probably heard me say that a bunch of times.
Yep.
So what are some of the most common operational breakdowns you see EOS solve within law firms?
That's a great question. And I think the easiest answer is to start with, and this is a line we use as EOS implementers all the time. Typically, your visionaries, which are typically your founding lawyer, is typically your visionary. He's the one kind of casting the vision. He's got a million ideas. Like you said, not typically formally trained in business, and there's 136 issues happening all at the same time, right? And that can be overwhelming for anyone, right? I mean, you and I, we've both been there, right? We ran agencies, and you run an agency still. There's all these issues, and part of the magic of EOS is boiling it down to those six core components, right? When you're looking at it and saying, I've got people, I've got vision, I've got traction, I've got data, I've got process. We've got these core components, right? And we say, let's boil it down to those, and it really helps simplify that approach. You can identify where things are challenging. So let's start with vision, for example. One of the ways it helps cut through things for law firms, especially, is because we love them, right? But attorneys, they like to be verbose. They like to talk. They like to, to write a lot more words, right? And part of the magic with EOS, the vision component, the VTO, as we call it, the Vision Traction Organizer, 2-page clear plan. This is where we're going. And it helps bring it down in a way that the rest of the team can keep up. Because often what you find is these visionary attorneys are brilliant, and their team can have a hard time keeping up with where are they going, what are they coming up with, what are we trying to accomplish, and you end up with these 30-page business plans, right? Or frankly, you end up with no business plan because I can't even explain it. I'm not even going to try, right? And so it helps bring it down. You have this 2-page clear plan, everyone can understand, and then you develop this 90-day world to begin to move closer and closer and closer to it. And I use that one as those two kind of tools that work together as an example, because I've seen it kind of cut down the frustration. When you say, all right, we do understand where we're going. We do understand the manageable chunks and steps we need to take as an organization and the accountability that's required to get there. So I think across the board, it creates a much more sustainable framework versus that frustration of why can nobody keep up? Why is nobody getting anything done? Why are we not growing when we put all this extra work in? Because typically their default is just to work harder. But when you have a large firm, just that one attorney or even his or her leadership team working harder, that's not enough. You need to create the exponential effort of getting the whole team on board, the whole team working in tandem, and getting to live into that 90-day world. I think for me, when I'm looking at it, it's the clarity of that approach, and it begins to help remove the need for that lead attorney to be like, I've just got to work harder.
So you talk about a 90-day world. So that's the cadence. Every 90 days you meet with your implementer to get refocused and readjusted within the EOS, within the operating system, to make sure you clarify your goals. And of course, I know this because we do it. I live in that world, but I just wanted to give clarity for those listeners who don't know. It's not 90 days and you're done. It doesn't work that way.
The idea is when you're building the vision out, you say, all right, where are we going to be in 10 years? Then you say, where are we going to be in 3 years? Then you say, where are we going to be in a year? And then where the magic really happens is where will we be in 90 days? And the leadership team makes that commitment every 90 days. Where are we going to be in 90 days? Great. And then every week you're reporting on that. Did we move closer? At the end of that 90-day world, you take on new goals. We call them rocks, right? What are the priorities? What are we accomplishing in the next 90 days? And it makes that overwhelming, how in the world are we going to become a $20 million firm? Well, let's not worry about that right now. Let's worry about the steps that take us closer to the 1 year, which takes us closer to the 3 year, which takes us closer to the 10 year. And it breaks that down to the 90-day world. But I think the 90-day world part of EOS is probably one of the most powerful.
So you really spoke about vision, but EOS also emphasizes structure and accountability to go along with that. So can you walk us through those components and how they show up typically in a law firm implementation?
I think so. Think about many of the law firms you've worked with, right? Which you've worked with many, as have I. Many of those, think about how many of those that founding attorney or principal is in too many seats or roles, right? You can probably think of many right now. You're probably thinking, yeah, I got this client and this client and this client. He's doing too many things. She's doing too many things. And so that's one of the key things that I see often when EOS is implemented first is you have that founder when I first implemented EOS, I was in 4 seats, right? And it was unsustainable. It was exhausting. And so one of the first things that structure, it's not scalable. Well, exactly. And actually, that's actually probably where a lot of the frustration comes from. Why can't I break through this ceiling? right? Why is my firm stuck at 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, whatever that number is they're stuck at? It's typically a structure issue. It's not scalable. And so one of the tools within the system is the accountability chart. Identify what seats are in your organization, not just developing an org chart where it's just who are the people we have. What is the ideal framework for the business, right? You have the key leaders. What are those key leadership seats? And then identify, hey, how many seats is that founder sitting in? All right. Why is he sitting or she sitting in 4 seats? Can we make a plan to begin to remove seats? Does that founder need to be sitting in the marketing seat? No, probably not. We can find somebody to do that and then bring in law firm marketing pros to work with them, right? Why is that founder sitting in the HR seat? Please, God, no, right? Well, why? So it's figuring out why do we have this leader in multiple seats, and it identifies when you start to look at the elevate and delegate tool, when that leader begins to delegate things, cool, let's start with that seat. Let's find somebody to replace that seat. Is that person in-house? Do we need to hire externally? And so that accountability part of it creates a much better structure, even if no change happens right away. It at least identifies, oh, you're sitting in 4 seats. Now let's work on getting you out of all of those seats, if that makes sense. And then, like I said, I think the from a how does it help with the structure and accountability piece of it, coming back to that vision component, if we all know where we're headed, we can be more accountable to each other. And so I think that clarity of vision is very powerful.
Okay, so you've had this incredible journey growing an agency, exiting, and now that you're coaching others. What are the key lessons around management and team building that you think every attorney should hear?
Yeah, I think there's a couple, right? So the first one is delegate faster. So I hung into things way too freaking long, and that was detrimental. I look back at things that I was afraid to let go of or that I wouldn't let go of, and I thought nobody can do it as good as me. And I look back and go, wow, I was so bad at that thing. Why was I the one doing that thing, right? Or like you said earlier, that thing never scaled because I continued to hold on to it, right? So sales was one of those things that I refused to let go of, that once I let go of, we were a lot more sustainable, right? A lot more scalable. So I think one of the lessons there is delegate earlier. But with that, be slower to hire, faster to fire. We've all heard that. It's so real though, right? And I think we struggle with that being fast to fire. Hold people accountable and say, is this person in the right seat? If I look back and I pick the top 3 mistakes I made in my agency, they all had to do with holding on to somebody too long. All of them, like all of my major issues, the major mistakes I've made were I just liked that person too much to let him go. And I thought I was failing as a human and failing as a boss if I let them go. Sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes you need to hold somebody accountable and either let them rise to the occasion or roll out somewhere, go to somewhere else, right? And that's okay. I always looked at losing people as a failure. I think that was a big failure on my part, was looking at it that way. And so I think really saying, okay, what do I need to delegate? How can I delegate it? And then putting the right people in the seat and not being afraid to replacing that seat if you need to, because the magic happens when you start getting those right people in the right seats. When you start getting the right people who align core values, who align with the identity of the organization that fit, and then getting them in the right seats. You got to have both.
And using some of the tools that prior to implementing EOS that you may not even know of, for example, the people analyzer, such a
Yes.
valuable tool in making decisions. So
It removes the emotion, right? When you can
it
say,
really does.
Yeah.
And so, I've done this with a couple of the team leads, and I said, let's go to the people analyzer and let's do it right now. Are they above the bar, below the bar? Do they get it, want it, have the capability to do it? And your decision's easy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I had a client recently, I was running a quarterly session for them, and they were struggling with a team member, and it was kept coming up. You had the different team members kind of complaining about this other team member. And finally, I'm like, do we need to IDS this? Do we need to solve this? Identify, discuss, solve is another tool. And the owner said no. And everybody else is like, yes. I'm like, oh, hold up, guys. Like, we've got to do this. And I looked at the owner, and I'm like, listen, his name's Josh. I was like, another Josh. I'm like, hey, we got to break this down. We got to dig into this. I said, we're going to people analyze this person. And we put them up on the board and we write it all out. And, it was 2 minuses on the core values. And I'm like, guys, clear, like this is not a fit. And the challenge was this team member had been on their team for 9 years. And they did not want to, like, there's just like, I don't want to deal with this. I'm like, based on this and what you've told me, what you have to do. He's like, yeah, I know. And so he took a to-do to address it. And
Yeah.
I said, do you think you can coach up? He said, I might be able to. So then your commitment, the rock you're going to take is coach up or coach off. Like if you think you can.
The challenge is when you coach up to now you need to micromanage it. And then how's that negatively impact the quality of what your responsibilities are and the quality of your life moving
Correct.
forward as it creates stress. And we haven't even touched on the improved quality of life that comes with EOS, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but all good stuff. I do want to make one mention. I just finished reading this book and what you talked about hiring and firing decisions and the pain that we're talking about. The book is The Mistakes That Made Me a Millionaire by Kim Perrell. I highly recommend it. And one of the chapters she talks about that exact thing, just holding on to people too long. Right. So,
Yeah.
so Kim, if you're listening, big shout out to you. So let's talk a little bit about lessons and success stories. So can you share a success story of a law firm that implemented EOS and saw meaningful change, whether in clarity, profit, team dynamics, or growth?
Yeah, I think the biggest one I want to lean into was a law firm owner's journey of finding a strong second in command, a strong operational, they call it integrator within EOS, right? So with EOS, you'll hear visionary integrator a lot, right? It's that dynamic duo, the visionaries driving things forward, it's the big personality, the big idea person. And that integrator could be the person that brings it all together. And I think I see a lot is it can be hard for I think those high-powered attorneys, those founding attorneys, to have that trust in one person and to find somebody they can actually rely on that can keep up with them, right? That's also part of that dynamic. Those are very powerful personalities. And so that dynamic is very interesting. And so I saw a journey of looking for that second in command, that person that would really come in and take off that load, those extra seats. And frankly, he struggled. He struggled with finding that right person. And I watched him apply the US principles actually, at first it didn't. And it was like, all right, I just need to put this person in. I'm just gonna, do it the way I would have done it before. And it really struggled. And then I watched the visionary find his integrator and say, okay, and we actually sat down and we were talking about like what are you looking for? What do you need there? And when he did, she came in and it totally transformed the organization. It totally accountability started happening in the organization in a way that had never happened before. It began to get a lot more efficient, leaner. There was a lot more of those kinds of things happening within the organization. Some of the hard conversations that have been getting dodged forever began to be had. There was a lot of that happening very quickly where that number two could handle the systems, the hard convos, the accountability, begin to help figure out the scalability of it. Ironically, it's funny, it actually led to me exiting that business in a positive manner, because they got their handle around their internal marketing and they got an internal team set up. I was a fractional CMO there, again, previous life. Now that I've gone into EOS now, but it actually led to, hey, I don't think you need me anymore. And they're like, yeah, it's a weird. I mean, I was there 3 years. It was a weird exit. But we all left on really good terms because it actually was a healthy thing that I was able to then exit. I mean, I just actually drove over there and visited them the other day and hung out. So it was a good exit. But I think that was a really incredible win to see that begin to happen in an organization that really needed that. So,
Good stuff.
yeah.
So what tends to shift in the law firm owner's mindset once the EOS is fully implemented and in place?
They get to focus on their unique ability. They get to focus on what makes them tick. And that's different for everyone, right?
Right.
But they finally have the space to work on the business and begin to let go of things they don't love to do. Right. It's the journey from it's the journey of doing what they love with people they love, making a huge difference, being compensated appropriately, and with time for other passions. Right. And that's a quote. That's the EOS life. If we've implemented well at an EOS company, that happens. for the visionary, for the leadership team. We want them doing what they love with people they love, making a huge difference, being compensated appropriately, and having time for other passions. That's huge. And you begin to see that happen. That happened for me, right? At the agency, I did a lot of things there I did not like to do. I mean, I did a lot of things I didn't enjoy. And with EOS, I began to identify that. That's the Elevate Delegate tool that we use. We began to identify what are the things that I don't like doing that take my energy away. And we begin to remove those things. And after a while, all we had left were the things that I really liked to do that I was good at, which is why I ended up having a lot more time for the fractional practice that I did for several years, right? Which is actually what led me to loving EOS more and more. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
That's the journey, right?
It is the journey.
So let's talk about industry trends and what's next. So we're seeing more law firms start to embrace structure and systems. Why do you think now is the moment EOS is going to gain traction within the legal industry?
I think the first half of the answer is EOS is gaining traction like it never has before in all industries. So that's the first answer, right? So we're seeing it gain traction. I mean, 5 years ago when I was doing it, it was not like, and we started about the same time. You remember, it was not as well known back
Right.
then, right? It was just not as, I was in 2 CEO groups at the time and maybe 3 others were doing it. Now, fast forward to now, most of the people in the groups are doing like, it's much more prevalent. That's one. The reason I think law firms especially are gravitating towards it is because a law firm is the epitome of the charismatic leader with 1,000 helpers. Right? It's in that you'll see that written about out there. It's not, I'm not making that up. That's a thing. You have this idea of a lot of businesses where you have this really powerful charismatic leader or very, very good at what they do, and they have all these helpers, right? Employees. And the structure is basically that. This person is driving the business. It's driving maybe the sales, maybe it's driving the high level of execution. And you have all these people that are hired to help them. And you realize that it's very hard to break out of. You said it earlier, it's hard to scale. So you need a solid operations system or operating system to break out of that model, which is how most law firms are built, right? They go out on their own, they start themselves, they hire one person, they hire another person, they hire some other attorneys, maybe to get some partners, but it's still all built on this inverted pyramid. And if that you pull that one person out and everything kind of falls apart, or if that one person gets burned out, or if that one person needs a break, it takes a vacation, well, they're gone for 3 weeks and revenue goes through the floor because they're gone, right? Everything's built on that one person. And the operating system flips it around to say, all right, let's build a structure around this. Let's build an operating system, which is really what EOS is. I think that's probably why you're seeing it more in the law firm space. And it's worth mentioning, there's now 850 of me in the world serving 30,000 companies. Like that's grown a lot over the last 5 or so years.
So what's next for you as an EOS implementer? Like, are there specific ways you're hoping to work more closely with attorneys in 2026 and beyond? What's your plan?
Yeah, for me, it's simple. I want to help more teams, right? And my passion really, it starts with the leadership teams because that's who I work with. But I really want to see more visionaries free, like being able to free up and do what they love. If I can see more visionaries be able to step back and breathe for a minute, that's my win, right? And truly, my one of the reasons my LLC is called Greater Purpose Consulting, it's that I truly believe that by doing this, I'm helping people step into a greater purpose. I'm helping people do things they care about that matter. And when you start hearing and sitting down with people, and I ask them, "What do you really want to do?" and they start explaining more about their business, I'm like, "No, no, I heard. Like we already talked about that. What do you want to do? What impact on the world do you want to make? What's your greater purpose?" Everybody has one. They can actually like, oh, well, actually, I'd love to be able to do this one day or whatever. And they look at it, they're talking about like it's in retirement. It's 30 years from now. It's 40 years from now. And I'm like, well, what if we got there sooner? Like, what needs to happen for you to have time for that? And so for me, what I'd like to see happening in 2026 beyond is I've set some goals. I said in 2026, I'd like to help entrepreneurs, visionaries, owners achieve 100 greater purposes, whatever that looks like, right? And that might be doing something that they've never done, that they've always wanted to do. It might be me making an impact on a local community. It might be whatever it is. But I've set that goal. I've left the definition of greater purposes a little bit loose on purpose to kind of see what that looks like. But that's the goal I've set.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So based on everything that you've learned from building rock, paper, simple to now implementing EOS, what final nuggets of wisdom would you like to share with aggressive growth minded attorneys?
So I mentioned the tool Elevate and Delegate earlier. Do that. Do the one tool. If you do nothing else, if you don't implement EOS, if you literally read the book, look up Elevate, Delegate, and do it. Sitting down, building the quadrants and saying, okay, what is it that I love to do and I'm great at? Write those out, right? What is it that I like to do and I'm okay, I'm good at, right? Write those out. What am I good at that I don't like to do? And what am I not good at and don't like to do that I'm currently doing,
The
right?
four
You're writing all these
quadrants,
things
right?
out.
Mhm.
Right? If you build it in those quadrants, do that exercise and bring that to your leadership team and say, help me get rid of things in the bottom two quadrants. That's the one thing, like if they do that,
So you said read the book. The book you're talking
yes,
about is Traction.
yes,
And I
yes,
recommend that's by Gino Wickman, but I also
yes,
recommend before you read Traction, depending on how your mind works, because I'm not the engineering type mind, and Traction is kind of really a systems and engineering type book. Read Get a Grip first, which is the
agreed.
fable that kind of introduces you to the whole concept and how it was implemented in a fictitious company, and then read Traction. That's my recommendation. That's what
Yeah.
worked for me.
Totally agree with that. If any of your listeners would like a copy, let me know. I've got a gazillion copies. I'll mail it to them.
Great. And we'll get back to that in a minute. But now it's time to move on to my favorite part of the podcast, and that is the lightning round where people get to know, like, and trust you. So I'm going to ask you a question, whatever pops into your mind about your own personal life and personality, you just answer, and we'll just whip through these questions. So, what mantra or quote do you live by?
Ever forward.
What is your favorite childhood movie?
Lord of the Rings.
How would your friends describe you in 3 words?
3 words, 3 words. Probably nerdy business guy.
Nerdy business guy with an orange sport coat.
With an orange sport coat. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what's your favorite food?
Sushi
What is the best gift that you have ever given?
that I've ever given. Probably the proposal when I proposed to my wife. And that story would take far too long, but it was a very special proposal, highly coordinated with different family members, all Disney themed. It was a blast. So probably that.
And which book or movie changed you?
Oof. Oof. Uh, so there's a book called Boundaries. 100, like, it changed my life. I had a friend say, "Hey, I think you need to read this." And I read it it was probably in my early 20s, and it really changed the way I thought about boundaries in my own life, when to say no, and where I begin and other people begin, right? And so I found that very difficult or in my early part of my life. So boundaries was huge for me.
Super important when dealing with attorneys, by the way. No offense, guys. So what advice would you give your younger self?
Read Boundaries sooner.
There you go. Okay. What's your favorite way to spend a Sunday?
Uh, uh, we're part of a home church, and so we host church in different homes. And so our home church, and then time spent with the kiddos. My wife and I foster, so I get a little extra time with the kids during the weekends.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So what dream or goal excites you most right now?
So I mentioned the greater purposes thing earlier. Over 10 years, I'd like to help 1,000 people achieve greater purposes.
Oh, something that's beautiful, by the way. So something that you're currently learning or working on improving.
Oh, time management, routine. I want to go do big things. I'm excited. I'm distractible. And so like that discipline of time management, routine, work out, get some exercise in, having that routine, very challenging. I've got a coach that is our focus right now. She's like, we've got to work on your routine.
Helping you with your own internal boundaries.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's right. Exactly.
I'm still learning boundaries.
That's right. Well, probably never stop. So, Josh, this has been great. I'm super excited for this next chapter for you in your life. Can you please tell the listeners what's the best way to contact you so they can get one of the books that's sitting over your shoulder there?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you can email me, joshua.adams@eosworldwide.com. You can call me, 321-474-7513 is my cell. Feel free to reach out, text me. I respond to both of
Yeah,
those.
repeat that again, please, for them. Just
321-474-7513. I know you attorneys like to just text and get done with it. So just text me. It's fine. You don't have to waste time calling me. Say, hey, I'd like one of those books. Here's my address. Go for it. I'll send you a traction book.
so social media, LinkedIn, any of that.
Yeah, LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just Joshua Adams EOS. I'll come up. And then eosworldwide.com/Joshua-Adams will be my microsite. So you can get to me there as well.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for today, Josh. Once again, thanks again for being a guest. And this is Josh Konigsberg signing off from the AGM Attorney Podcast. Bye for now, everybody.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the AGM Attorney Podcast. Now it's time to put these strategies into action and accelerate your growth. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you next time.